Hello, everyone. I'm Luba Vangelova. I'm the founder of The Hub, an online community for homeschoolers that offers a range of programs. And I am joined here today by Lizz Quain, who has been, well, she can tell you what she's been doing. It's quite interesting, something called worldschooling, which may be new to some of you and not so new to some of you. And hopefully we'll cover enough to make this of interest to people in both camps. So over to you, Lizz, if you could introduce yourself and explain what this concept of world schooling is.
Sure. Thank you so much, Luba. I know we kind of connected a few years ago, so I'm really glad that we're doing this because as a world schooling parent, I'm really trying to, promote it, the lifestyle and normalize it a little bit. Sometimes people think it's only for the rich and famous that can stay at these five-star hotels and take their kids and jet set, but it's actually for everyone. I mean, for as many people as can figure out how to at least have a basic affordability. It's not just for rich. So world schooling is similar to homeschooling, but you are using the world as your classroom. And my kids and I have 13-and-a-half-year-old twin girls. We've been world schooling for and traveling most of the time for over 6 years. And we have visited or lived in 20 different countries. Prior to having kids, I used to travel a lot. You know, I backpacked around the world years ago as a young woman and just always took a lot of trips abroad and vacations. So it's a huge passion of mine. And then, I used to own a children's business that included a preschool. And when I decided to sell it, because I was really burned out from running a brick and mortar business, I was trying to think about what to do next. And I heard about the concept of being a world schooler with the kids and then for myself to be a digital nomad. So I thought that made a lot of sense. And I thought, okay, let's try it for a year. And we traveled around Asia and a little bit of Europe that first year, and we loved it. So my kids keep voting to go. Well, one of them keeps going, but one of them is taking a break. We can talk about that later. But basically, the first year I was trying to figure out what to do education-wise because my kids had gone to a traditional public school and they had already gone through kindergarten and first grade. Previously, they were in my play-based preschool. So they were kind of having a hard time with all the rules and having to line up and not being able to go to the bathroom when they needed to, just all the rules and regulations and all the pressure to learn all this academic stuff and have homework at such a young age. So I was trying to figure out what to do with their education while traveling. And I initially, we were in Bali and I met a homeschool mom who was following the Charlotte Mason method. So, I was trying to learn from her and I was trying to learn from other people. Some of the families were unschooling and I thought that sounded pretty radical. And I thought at first, oh, no way. But a lot of world schoolers who initially homeschool or follow a curriculum or follow a method, a lot of them kind of move over to unschooling or self-directed learning because, the world is strewing to them. It's introducing so many topics to the kids and so many conversations get started. So eventually we moved to that direction. But at first I was really confused about the education method. And I was trying to sit my kids down and let's read Harry Potter. And they're like, but no, I want to go outside and check out that giant spider that's in that tree. And I heard some monkeys way over there, let's go try to find them. And, they were just wanting to be out in nature or, make things and be creative. So I relaxed a little on that. And it was good because I heard about deschooling. So we spent that first year deschooling because me trying to get them onto the laptop to do Khan Academy math lessons wasn't working so well. So, basically world schooling is using the world as your classroom and, looking at different cultures, languages, the different religions and the nature out there in the world. As you get older, learning about politics and the history of the place and, just all the global aspects that are out there in the world. And it was really important for me to raise my kids to grow up to be global citizens. And I didn't want them to be typical American princesses and kind of getting sucked into the whole consumer oriented society. So since I had traveled abroad, I saw how it really changed my perspective about the world and life in general. I think I don't sweat the small stuff so much. And, I really appreciate, other people around the world and other cultures. And, when people get so upset about something here locally or nationally, I realized, like, in the big scheme of things, you shouldn't get upset about that. So I think it really helped me change my perspective. I learned to become a more patient person, more understanding, more empathetic. So these are things that my kids are picking up. And, now, just so you know, you don't have to travel to be considered a world schooler. I think it's the intentional act of trying to bring the world to your kids. And, whether there's like an international market near your house or festivals or, making friends from other culture and asking them about, their family history and how they came to your country, or just there's usually in bigger cities, and at least in the US, there's a lot of cultural events and obviously lots of different types of food that you can explore. And, there are, Buddhist temples in the area, so you can really, you don't have to get on a plane or a train to go abroad to world school. Of course, that's the ideal way. But, you don't have to do it. And now some families are full-time world schoolers. Some people are part-time world schoolers. They might just, if you're in traditional school, go on school holidays, which is kind of expensive. That's when airfares really go up. But a lot of homeschoolers will travel, either domestically or abroad, and, take advantage of those like shoulder seasons or whatever. So, some people, again, are intermittent world schoolers, and some people do like a 1-year gap year, a family gap year. So there are many different ways to do it. Now, some people move to another country, and I guess they're more like expats, but they're learning about that new country's culture and maybe visiting the surrounding family. So I still consider them world schoolers as well. So it is my mission to help promote world schooling, because thanks to the beauty of the internet, many of us can work online. And, especially now since post-pandemic, a lot of people are still working from home. And I'm just trying to encourage them not just to, get their kids in an RV and drive around the US, which is awesome, or whatever country you come from, but go one step further and go explore another country. And I think that you'll find there's many benefits to world schooling. And again, we don't look at this lifestyle as just being perpetual tourists. A lot of times we're doing monthly rentals, furnished rentals, and kind of living, I wouldn't say like local so much, well, although you can, but maybe, temporary expats. And it's more available to everyone. And I think a lot of people get stuck on this, even if they work remotely, that, oh, what am I going to do with my kids? How am I going to educate them? And I did do a video on the 6 top ways to world school kids, 6 different ways to educate. So we can briefly go through those top 6 ways. But sorry, I'm talking a lot, but that's kind of the beginning of talking about world schooling.
Yeah. So just to kind of step back, because it's interesting that you mentioned that you don't even need to be traveling to be considered a world schooler. So in a way, it sounds like world schooling may be more kind of a mindset rather than a physical thing that people do. And you mentioned about, traveling around the US or whatever country, someone lives in an RV, which is probably, a lot of would be a lot more accessible to people. I mean, whether it's in an RV or just, in a vehicle with a tent or
Yeah.
whatever. But would you consider that world schooling or?
Sure. Yeah. Again, it's just going outside of your hometown. You've got your little bubble, and just expanding your bubble to look at more of the world. And your country is part of the world too.
Yes.
Again, there's the especially the US is so big. There's so many
Yeah.
different cultures in the US and so much history. And the East Coast is different from the West Coast, and the national monuments. And you go to Louisiana, and that's very different, or versus New England. There's a lot of differences in our
Yeah.
country, and there's
Yeah.
tons to learn. And I guess a lot of those people call themselves road schoolers.
Mm.
There's also boat schoolers,
Oh,
people
yeah.
who sail around or boat around. So there's many different ways, different modes of transportation to do it.
Mhm.
But I have to say that it may be less expensive to world school right now because
Mhm.
of inflation than road schooling in the US,
Mhm.
because the cost of living,
Yeah.
even if you're traveling around, the cost of gas is so high, and you can go to a lower cost of living country and possibly live more affordably than RVing around with your kids, depending on where
Yes.
you're going.
Absolutely. So I remember way back in my much younger days when I spent a year backpacking around Australia and Southeast Asia. And I mean, I was fortunate in that I got a I happened to do it during a recession, and the company I'd been working for was offering buyouts. I took a buyout and I used that money to travel for a year. And I know several other people who have done exactly that, you know, during downsizing waves. And so one thing that I remember very starkly was the range of people who were doing this. You know, there were people who had just regular office jobs and had been saving for a while. There were, you know, engineers, there were plumbers, butchers, just like people who worked in theater, it was just like, you know, a construction worker, you know,
Yeah.
um, like just people from very different walks of life. And one thing that, and we can get into some of the practicalities in more detail later, but was, yeah, it's about purchasing power of whatever currency you happen to have. And you can travel for a very long time, especially if you're doing it during a transitional period where maybe you've left a job or whatever, and where you can give up paying rent or a mortgage if you're moving or whatever, and not have that expense. It's really quite amazing how far the money that you would be paying toward rent or mortgage can go in another country with a much lower cost of living. You may find you can live 6 months off of what, you know, um, you would have been paying for 1 month in the
Yeah,
US.
no,
Anyway.
absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, back then, when I was backpacking as a young woman, and then I took a year also, I got laid off from a .com job in San Francisco, and I lived in Spain for a year, and went to a language school, to learn Spanish. So I've done it twice. Um, I met lots of people like you did who, like me, would work and save up money and then, sell the car, put some stuff in
Mhm.
storage, and then grab a backpack and go. And nowadays, I mean, again, those people still exist, but nowadays, many of us can work online. And I did put together a presentation
Right.
on 235 income ideas to fund world schooling. I mean, anyone, it's for anyone. So there's lots of ideas there. And what we're doing, preferably what you want to do is take advantage of geographic arbitrage. So whether it's a remote job you have with a company in the US or Europe or Australia or any high income country, and then, spending in pesos or baht or lari or lira, that is the way to go because, I mean, think about, I'm living in the suburbs of Seattle where it's $5, 6, 7, $8,000 a month for a small family of three to survive here and live okay, middle class, I guess. And I would say a lot of times for the same lifestyle in developing countries. And we pick places that are still nice and safe and they have amenities and good internet and all that, but we get it down to less than $2,000 a month. And then I can save the rest. And it just gives you more flexibility. And I think, there's this whole financial fire movement. People are trying to work when they're young and save up money and retire early. You can do that while traveling the world and world schooling as well. I mean, obviously kids are expensive, and if you find expensive things to do, then you won't reach that goal. But there's economical ways to do this.
Yeah. And so can you just explain? So you've touched on this about how sometimes you'll stay in one place for a month. I mean, so I imagine, different families have different styles. I would imagine some would like to breeze through places and just keep going, and some probably like to hang out somewhere and really soak up the culture for a month or several months or maybe a year. And so that there's a real range, I would guess, of styles of doing this. And given that, I mean, do you find yourself when you're traveling, do you find the other world schoolers that happen to be in the same place as you at the same time and connect with each other? Or do you find yourself mostly interacting with locals or other expats that are not world schooling? Or what does the social life look like?
Yeah, we participate in all of the above. And I guess when we first started traveling, we fast traveled a bit more. I mean, not super fast. We went to, I think, 10 countries the first year. And some places we whizzed through, especially expensive countries like Japan. We went to many different places in 3 weeks. And then other places, we were in Chiang Mai, Thailand, which is a popular digital nomad hub, for a month. And then we were in Koh Phangan Island in southern Thailand for a month. And a lot of those places we met other world schoolers, and you can post in the Facebook groups, or sometimes they have a "where in the world are you" kind of thread where you can go find people or use the search function. So we have met loads of people traveling, fast traveling or slow traveling. Expats, some of them are really open to meeting us, and others, I think, because we're passing through pretty quickly, that they already have their life set up. Maybe they put their kids in an international school, and they may or may not be interested. Now, there are times when we really try to find community. I recently did a poll, and it's one of the top challenges that current world schoolers have is having community. And there are world school hubs that are around. Some of them are running all year round. Others pop up, certain times of the year. So we intentionally try to go to those. And some of them are organized really well with lots of activities, and you have to pay a fee, and maybe there's childcare for the younger kids and teen activities. And then others are just more informal, where there's a bunch of families in a town and the parents are in a WhatsApp group, and it's kind of like a co-op, like a homeschool co-op, where you say, hey, today I'm doing XYZ, who else wants to join? Or I'm hiring a teacher to do something, so who wants to chip in and do it? So there's many ways to do it, and we have done all of the above. My daughter, Gabby, who still loves homeschooling. The other one is trying out a Montessori in grandma's town. So we can talk about that later, but she wanted to try something different. But Gabby really loves to travel and world school. And she wanted to improve her Spanish. So we have lived in several Spanish-speaking countries, and she's picked it up. And I did put her in a couple different schools just for Spanish immersion. But she was kind of still a little, still not a little shy about speaking it and, saying full sentences. So she decided, okay, for the next several months, let's go to a Latin American country and learn Spanish. So we went to Buenos Aires, and it's not a big world school hub. It's not a place where a lot of world schoolers go. I mean, some people do go through and pass through town, but it's not like a place where a lot of world schoolers are living for long terms. So we went there, and just through my network of people in alternative education, I found some homeschoolers, some Argentine homeschoolers. And there was one alternative school in Buenos Aires, but we went to visit it, and most of the kids were young. And my daughter's 13, and she's allergic to young, loud kids. So we luckily found some teens, and we went, one mom organized a meetup at her apartment once a week with an English teacher. And even though obviously my daughter is fluent in English, she still went once a week. It was a small fee, and they obviously were speaking Spanish too. So it was kind of a interchange. And then I hired a tutor for my daughter pretty intensively for the first month to get her Spanish up to a certain level. And then I found an online version, kind of like of the Hub. It was a self-directed online teen school program, I guess, for self-directed learners run by a university in Argentina. So I enrolled Gabby in that, and it was a four times a week kind of a thing, 1 or 2 hours a day. And the students decided what they wanted to learn, and there was a facilitator there to help them with that. So even though she wasn't super conversant at that time, she could listen and answer questions and speak a little. So that's when we really immersed in the local culture and made friends there. And again, a lot of the moms don't speak English, so I'm having to it hurts my brain to hang out with them for 2-3 hours and speak Spanish. But I use Google Translate a lot when we do long messages. But yeah, so we've done all of the above. And I think it depends on what your goals are, and what, if you want a community, if you want a social life, if you're extroverted or introverted. I mean, there's many different ways to world school and find community.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And one of the things I noticed you put some polls up in your Facebook group. And I noticed that I thought it was interesting the way you asked people who were considering world schooling to rank their top concerns, or to check off their top concerns, and then people who are already homeschooling to check off their main concerns. And they were not the same. It was interesting, like how many people who were thinking about world schooling but had never done it checked off loneliness as a big concern, and very few people who were actually already world schooling checked that as a concern. That was one thing I noticed. But
yeah, I probably should have combined finding community with loneliness, because they're kind of the same thing, I guess. Because finding community was the already world schoolers #1 or #2, I think it was #1 issue. But yeah, so they're kind of, I think when you're living in a traditional life of, what do they call it, bricks and sticks life or something, and your kids are either in school or you're homeschooling them, and you have already your community and you have your friends that you've known for decades. Maybe, I mean, maybe you've gone to high school there yourself, grew up there, or you're in a new town, but you have community, and it's scary. There's a lot of fear of people to leave that comfortable life and that social circle that you already have, to go out there in the world and know no one, and except for your family. So I think that is a big fear. But as I mentioned before, and yes, current world schoolers also have that challenge of finding community. And I really wish there were more world school hubs popping up. They are not easy to run. And that's why whenever I talk about it, I encourage basically we customers to be kind to these world school hubs, because it's a lot of work, and a lot of them are not doing it for big profit. And there's, just whenever you have a community, I mean, think about a homeschool community, there's a little drama there, and you're sometimes arranging accommodation and transportation and activities. And there's so many logistics to, go through. So some families don't see it as a cooperative because they're like paying money, but then you have to realize this is not the Four Seasons, and your expectations have to kind of be more realistic. So, I'm really hoping that more will pop up. My daughters and I hosted a teen pop-up in Turkey this past spring for a month, and it was really fun. But again, I learned that it was really a lot of work, and I hired a Turkish woman to help me facilitate it.
So yeah, if you could just explain like these in-person hubs or pop-ups. I mean, I guess some are pop-ups and some are more long-lasting, longer term. Can you just give a concrete idea of what happens at these places?
Sure. Everyone is different. It depends on the organizer and I guess the families that are coming. We have visited a handful, and first I'll talk about the organized ones versus the kind of, self-organizing co-op ones. So there was one in Mexico called Anahata, which is on break right now. But they rented a resort, with a swimming pool, and sometimes they move locations, but they're in the Cancun area now. And so families live there. So it's a co-living situation. And they usually have like a big hotel room with 2 double beds. And I guess you could, if you have a big family, you can rent a couple of them. And then there's, a kitchen and a dining area and maybe a swimming pool. And so you live there. They try to get good internet for the parents. Maybe the dining area turns into co-working space. There's usually yoga and meditation for the parents. And then for the kids, there's, activities planned. We're going to one in Bansko, Bulgaria this winter for the 2nd year in a row. And this one we really loved because the organizer, Emmy, who's Dutch, and she's been world schooling for years, she and her 15-year-old daughter have put together this hub, and it's pretty organized. This year, there's a apartment complex, maybe 20 minutes from the ski lifts. It's a little further away this year than last year, but she has transport. So we're taking over 2 out of the 5 buildings in the complex. And there's a co-working space. There's, I think, an indoor swimming pool. And then we rent rooms from her. She organizes it all. Most of them, unfortunately, are studios and 1-bedrooms because the way the ski resort is set up usually for like, week-long holiday makers. So big families typically will rent multiple rooms on the same floor. So she will have activities for kids, and then another separate stuff going on for teens. And then for little kids, she does have childcare available. There's fees for this. And then there's stuff for the parents to do. We have parents' dinner out, we have hot springs. And then 3 times a week, she has a little minivan come and take us to the ski gondola to go skiing together as a group. So there's lots of activities going on, and we pay her a fee for the accommodation and the activities. And I really love it because I've been to other World School hubs that were not organized like this, and the teens get together once a week at a cafe, and then everything else is kind of a la carte, and my girls felt like there wasn't enough going on. They wanted to interact with my kids every day. And, they do some online learning as well. So we try to schedule things so it works. But we really like it when it's organized. And I don't think we would want to do it year round. But for 3 months is awesome. And some people go for just a month. I think it's like a month-to-month option. So yeah, that's how it goes. And then I think one thing I forgot to mention about slow traveling versus fast traveling is you need to realize that certain countries have short visas, like a tourist visa, you can only stay for a month or maybe 3 months. In Europe, you have the Schengen zone that you have to go in and out of 3 months in, 3 months out. Other countries will give you 6 months, or, the Republic of Georgia, we went to, gives you Americans and a lot of other nationalities a year. So does Albania. But if you want to stay longer term, you need to get a residence visa or a temporary residence visa. And know that a lot of countries, if you're there more than 6 months, you have to pay income tax in that country, even on your worldwide income. So it's something that I try to avoid just because, I don't consider myself a full-time resident. And then I'm still filing my US taxes once a year. And there are tax benefits of being out of the US 11 months of the year. There's a big tax break. So this nomadic lifestyle is financially, you could save a lot of money on taxes.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Can you talk a little bit about whether this, in your experience, seems better suited for certain ages of children? Is there an age at which the interest level of the children starts to fall off in doing this kind of lifestyle, and maybe they crave something more stable, I guess, for lack of a better word? Or is it just really individual personality based, more so than age dependent?
Yeah, I think it's both. Again, my family is experiencing this as well. But as far as age, let's start at the beginning. I mean, I have World School friends who have given birth to their children while they're traveling. I mean, of course, they're not just whizzing through, they're staying in a place, and they choose a place where it's good to give birth. And sometimes their children can get a second passport this way if that country gives citizenship on being born there, like the US does. And then, I think traveling with a baby or, small kids is challenging because you have to bring so much stuff. Now you can buy diapers all over the world. You can buy, all those things, but, bringing a car seat, bringing a stroller, all that stuff. I mean, preferably a baby carrier is good. But people with young kids do it. I do think the challenging time is when they're toddlers and when if you have a runner. Like one of my girls was always, I would lose her at the mall or Target or whatever. And I even tried those little leashes. I know it's mean, but I have twins. So yeah, that didn't work because they would just twist around my legs and that was a disaster. So I was really concerned about my daughter running off, and we started traveling when my twins were 7.5. And luckily, the runner kind of stayed close. But that's a challenging time because you need to make sure wherever you're staying, it's baby proofed. Airbnb sometimes are baby proofed. Sometimes I think the most dangerous thing is to rent a place with a swimming pool. And if you're too busy to be with your toddler all the time, they could fall in. So now I know in Bali, if you rent a house there, there's a company that comes with the gate that goes around the pool. So you can pay for that. And then, I think the school age years are great. Kids are more pretty flexible with that. And then once the kids hit puberty, some of them want to be with other kids for a longer period of time. Now, we have met lots of world schoolers when we travel, because I've always made it a point of at least part of the year being around community of other kids. And some of these families we have seen multiple times, in multiple countries, 3-4 countries. So we have our community, even though we're not with them all the time. A lot of times we say, hey, are you going to this place? We try to coordinate and let's meet up again in this country. But one of my daughters, she has ADHD and anxiety. So she was getting, on top of all of the traveling, she really wanted to stop. She didn't like packing. She didn't like waking up early to go to the airport, all the travel hassles that, I am so used to. She got tired of it. And one of the reasons why I did the Teen Hub was for her to have that social life, but she really craved longer term friendship. So luckily my mother has, she's been helping me since my girls were born. And she, has a big enough house. We're staying with her right now. And so my daughter, wanted to spend the summer with her. And then when Gabby and I went to Argentina, Aubrey asked, hey, Mom, can I try school? And the school near my mom's house was terrible because my mom did not buy a house in a good school district because, she's retired. But I was able to find out I could transfer her. And I found a Montessori that was still a public school that had a middle school. So that's where she's going. And grandma just has to drive her. So now, again, other families stop traveling when their kids become teens. I would say that the teenage years are the biggest challenge because some kids want to be in one place. Now, my other daughter, though, doesn't care about that. She's a bit of an introvert and she has her friends she's made. She keeps in touch with them online when we're not with them. And, again, this Bansko thing, there's a whole load, because one of the co-hosts is a 15-year-old girl. So she really made an effort to get teens. They also do a pop-up in the Netherlands where they're from, I think in November every year. So they have really made a great effort to have teens. We do find a lot of these World School hubs have younger kids. So sometimes we show up or, there's mostly younger kids. So we intentionally, just because my kids want to be with kids of their same age, try to find teens. That's the biggest challenge. And other kids are totally fine with it. Like I said, I even said to Gabby, hey, maybe we should settle down somewhere and get residency, maybe in Portugal or another country or Spain. Okay, I have to pay taxes. And she just says, no, I don't want to stop. I don't want to settle down. We just had a conversation where I said, let's go back to Spain in the spring. We were there last, a year and a half ago, and maybe we can find an alternative school. And if you like it, maybe we can come back every spring or spring and fall. Because I'm thinking she wants this continuity. And she said, no, we've already been to Spain. There's other countries I want to go to. So I think it really depends on the child and whether or not they want to socialize. Now, my one that's going to the Montessori, of course, now she's complaining about it. She's like, Mom, you're right. They're making me do a lot of busy work. And it's, you know, just all the stresses of going to a school, even though it's a Montessori, it's still a school and they still have, you know, grades and all that stuff. So who knows, she may want to travel with us in the future. We've kind of agreed to have her try it for 1 school year, and we're doing a twin experiment. So this topic that you're asking me about is my family is living it. And one of them wants to stop for a bit and the other one wants to keep going.
Yeah, and I guess that also points out to one thing, if people are considering it, that you don't have to make a firm binding commitment. Like if you try it and it's not working, you can pivot and come right back.
Yeah.
Right?
Just like everything in life,
Yeah.
we don't have to do one thing. And again, I believe in self-directed learning, and I try to give my kids a choice. Luckily, my mom is able to host my daughter, and she's happy because she doesn't like living alone and she's lonely. So she likes having my daughter around. And, you know, we have this as a home base now. So yeah, I think, you know, some years you want to do one thing, maybe put your kids in a school while you're traveling. Other times you want to unschool or visit world school hubs. Yeah, there's different ways. I mean, the top 6 ways I've talked about in an earlier video is, you know, homeschool them yourself. Put them in an online school. That tends to be the next step, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous, because there's both options, and there's traditional online schools and more alternative. And then enrolling them in a school, a local school in the country you're at. That is great for language acquisition. I think it's especially good for young kids. But then again, it's, you know, waking up early, getting them there early, all the school stuff that happens. If you can find an alternative school, and they have Montessori's and Agile Learning Centers and all that around the world, you have to dig around. And then, you know, world school hubs, and then online tutors or online or in-person tutors, or nannies, you know, when your kids are younger, just for language acquisition. And then finally unschooling, which I think is a really good combination with worldschooling. And some of them do a combination of all these.
And just in case there's some people who are not familiar with the term unschooling, and I know that different people define it in different ways, how do you define unschooling?
Sure. I actually I don't like that term unschooling. I just think it's a bit odd. So I prefer self-directed learning, or child-led learning. Some people call it life learning. There's many ways to describe this. It's basically having the child choose what they want to learn. And your job as a parent is not to be the teacher, but the facilitator. And when your kids are young, they may not be able to verbally tell you what they are interested in learning. So you really need to spend a lot of time watching them, being with them. You know, you can't neglect them. And this is the thing, like, think some kids who grew up unschooling will say, you know, I really liked unschooling, but I really wish my parents would be more involved in helping me learn things and would prepare me, because now I decided I want to go to college and I didn't really do those things. So I think, you know, always being in communication with your child and not being their teacher, but their facilitator, their coach, their cheerleader, and still being involved. And we can strew things, you know, like strewing seeds to chicken. We can introduce topics to the kids, but not force it on them. And like I said, the world is great at strewing ideas and concepts and all that to the kids, but you as a parent can do that. And I think just helping them be exposed to new things. I know that some unschoolers live in a small town and they don't get exposed to a lot. They don't travel much. I don't know, maybe their parents are anti-online stuff, so they don't get exposed to different ways to live or different concepts. And that's fine, but I just think it's, you know, the world is big and you might as well expose them to some of it. So yeah, I think just the kids would figure out what they are interested in, and then you can either hire a teacher or teach it yourself, or find a YouTube video, or find an online app for them to start learning how to code because they're interested in that. I mean, whatever they're interested in. And once they're older, they'll pretty much take over if they have good skills to find what they need. Some of them will do, internships and apprenticeships to really learn how to do something. And typically a lot of unschoolers, they, obviously learn what they're passionate about, and they dive deep, much deeper than when you're in school or even homeschooling, because I feel like homeschooling is replicating school, but at home, and you're trying to like cover these things that you think that the kids should learn, or the school district has said that they should learn. And there's so many obscure things out there that kids get interested in, and I think that's wonderful for us to learn about our passions and what we're good at, and want to keep doing so.
All right. And so sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I was going to ask I know that some families who have traveled for a while in an RV or on a boat, let's say, they're in close quarters with each other for a lengthy period of time, and it starts to get too much. Do you find that while world schooling, you're kind of on top of each other more so than you would be if you were just, homeschooling in one place?
Yeah, sometimes, but like I said, the RV situation is one of them. I really would love to camper van someday around Europe, and I actually rented a camper van in Spain for 5 days, and then Portugal for a couple weeks, and it was great at first, but then the one in Portugal, that we had electrical problems, so we had to return it early. And it was stressful, like going up a hill with a manual, and my kids complained because it wasn't enough room, and they just felt like even though there was sleeping space for the three of us, they just felt like there were too much going on. So I think I have to wait until my kids have flown the coop, to do this myself. But yeah, again, you can rent a large house. They have Airbnbs and Verbos and Booking.com, all those things that you can rent a big place. You don't have to stay in a hotel. So that helps. And then, if you go to a World School Hub, if you're, they have activities there, you can drop your kids off there. And, sometimes parents will go to a co-working space or just work in their apartment or house. You can get a nanny. I mean, I've hired nannies in Mexico and in Colombia. And I had my kids sign up for karate, gymnastics, and cooking class when we were in Medellin, Colombia. So either I or the nanny would take them there. So there's things where the kids can be, with other adult facilitators or teachers. Obviously, you can put them in a school. So there are, you can kind of live a regular life with your kids, like a homeschooling life, but you're maybe doing it only for 3 months and then changing locations.
And what about play dates?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Totally. Yeah. We do lots of play dates. I mean, like I said, I even if there's not a organized World School Hub, I make a big effort into meeting other families. Again, either other homeschoolers, local homeschoolers, because typically the, schooled kids are in school when we want to meet up for lunch or during the daytime, or other, expat homeschoolers or locals or other world schoolers. So we schedule a lot, and sometimes we take turns hosting a play date, and the mom or dad doesn't need to be there, like if we know them well enough, and that gives you time away from your kids to get work done or run errands.
Yeah. All right. And any other kind of big challenges that keep coming up that we haven't touched on yet that you think are good to point out, just so people can go into this with kind of the proper expectations and challenges, and what ways you found to overcome them?
Yeah. Again, one of the top issues for people who haven't started the lifestyle yet is how to fund the lifestyle. So this is why I put together a list. I was thinking about becoming kind of a digital nomad career coach for families that wanted to world school, but it's a very big, overwhelming issue. And again, right now, I am launching a program to help people start world schooling and focusing mostly on the travel tips and the education tips, because I figure there's plenty of people who have remote work or online income to be able to do the lifestyle. So I'm starting there. I may help with that income issue later, but I have a giant list of 235 ideas. So, and I also have an online business coach I can refer people to. She's wonderful if you want to do an online business. So let me know if you want her contact info. But yeah, so that's one of the top issues is the funding. Now, some people will sell their house, and right now, or I guess last year, it was a great time to sell your house, and then they'll travel off the proceeds of that, and then while they're traveling, they're trying to figure out their online income. Some people will figure out their online income a year or two before they start traveling, so that's kind of the more responsible thing to do. But so that is a big issue, and I think another issue is not just the kids not being on board with this lifestyle. Like I said, my daughter wanted to stop, but your spouse, your partner, may not want this lifestyle. I mean, they may have, you might be a total wanderlust, wanting to travel and raise global citizens, and that's like a huge benefit for my kids. But your spouse may be like totally happy living a stationary life, totally happy with whether they are at home all the time or doing the rat race or climbing the corporate ladder. I mean, that person might be thinking differently than you. So that is a challenge. Now, I have met moms usually that travel. They're homeschool moms a lot of times, or not. They'll pull their kids out and they will travel with their kids while their husband is at home, but the husband comes and visits them, a couple times, and they keep in touch with video chats, and they're happily married. But, I guess they've just said, listen, the kids are young once, and they, I really want to do this with them. I think it'd be good for them. Are you okay with us leaving the country and you stay and man the ship or whatever? Now, again, if you do that, you got to make sure to have a notarized document from your spouse saying it's okay for you to leave the country, because there's like anti-kidnapping laws around the world.
I mean, there's all sorts of practicalities for all these things. And any other things that come up regularly that you have, that you find yourself coaching people on?
Yeah, there's a million questions that people have. And this is a thing, because it's, I mean, think about your mom groups and all the questions that people get. It's that plus you're out there in the world. So there's so many questions. And again, this is why I'm putting together a 12-week program. And I'm focusing again on the getting ready, what to do with your house and your stuff, and all that, and the mindset, and getting over the fear. And then all the logistical, practical things, like don't forget this, don't forget that, because a lot of people kind of wing it, and which is fine. But I think I just see newbies make some mistakes, and oh my gosh, we lost all our luggage, or whatever, that we didn't know that this visa situation happened, and here we are stuck. There's just some newbie mistakes. And so I am trying to take all the overwhelm, all the decision making, and try to have it in a step-by-step fashion. And then half of the program is like the different ways to educate their kids. So I think there's so many questions, and you can go into the Facebook groups for world schoolers and ask them, or search for it and find it. You can DIY. I mean, there's blogs out there, there's YouTube videos, but I'm trying to take like all this information and try to get the major stuff put together in a step-by-step fashion in over 12 weeks. And it's live. I will be explaining this live, and we'll have Q&As and all that. So there's so many questions. There's so many, for one family, it might be this, and for another family, that's fine, but it might be a different thing. So I will be soon posting like all the topics I plan to go over in my program, and let me know if I'm forgetting anything, because again, I can probably talk forever about this topic, but we all have only so much time in the day to talk or listen.
Yeah, and I just want to throw out there, because I know one couple I met, they didn't have kids, but they actually traveled the world for, I think, a year, doing house sitting and pet sitting, and they did not even pay for accommodations. And in some instances, they also did some kind of barter thing, where, they would get lodging somewhere, but help out in someone's, cafe or whatever. I don't know. I mean, in a way that was
called Workaway. Workaway is the website for that. Yeah.
All right. And
there's another one called Woofing, WOOF.
Oh yeah, willing workers on organic farms.
Yeah. So if you're into permaculture or organic farms, that's kind of fun. Yeah. bringing this up to my kids, like, we should go spend time on a
Yeah.
farm, and they're like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Um, yes, there's all sorts of ideas. And so, just to wrap up, how, if they want more information, how can people who have been listening to this find you? Where can they find you and
Sure.
information?
I am posting a lot on Facebook, and it's not publicly all the time on my profile, but you can send me a friend request, LizzQuain. If you don't have anything on your profile that shows you have kids, you're a normal or whatever potential world schooling parent, send me a message because I get weird friend requests. I also have a Facebook group. It's a long one. The business name is called Trailblazing Families, and I have a Facebook page, but it's not very active. It's more the group World Schooling, Traveling, Digital Nomad, Trailblazing Families. So just search for Trailblazing Families. Also on Instagram. I'm not that active on Instagram. I'm trying to be better about it, but I'm posting a lot of content on my personal Facebook profile and in my group. And I'm going to be interviewing a lot of other world schooling families starting in January. When I start my program, I'm posting those in the free group. And I'm also going to be interviewing a lot of world school service providers. So other education, I'd love to talk to you, other education providers, or travel insurance, or world school
Mhm.
hub leaders, and just people who have something to offer, a product or service to world schoolers. So those will be in my free group, the World Schooling Trailblazing Families, and then I'll repost them on my YouTube channel, which again is fairly new. So try to follow me there. And yeah, just feel free to send me a friend request, LizzQuain.
All right. And I will also list that information in the blurb when I post this video. So
Thank
thank you, Liz. It's been very educational, and hopefully the people watching/listening to this have learned at least something useful and interesting. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Luba, for this opportunity. I really want to encourage more families to start traveling the world and raising global citizens. And there's so many benefits. We haven't even gone through all the
Yeah.
benefits of having the kids, experience and have more adventure in their life. And just reach out to me. I really want to help people live this lifestyle. And thank you so much for letting me spread the word.
All right. Thank you. Bye.